Please note, these are not my personal opinions. I'm simply presenting a list to spark discussion and respectful debate in the comments. We start with the Fokker Dr.1, one of the most debated fighters of the First World War. One side argues it earned its legendary status through unmatched maneuverability, an incredible climb rate, and engine torque that allowed extreme turns few aircraft could survive. In close combat, it was a fearsome weapon. The other side counters that those same traits made it dangerously unstable. Excessive torque caused pilots to lose control, structural weaknesses led to in-flight failures, and crashes often proved fatal. Even Manfred von Richthofen, the Red Baron, achieved most of his victories in other aircraft. In films and media from the 2010s and 2020s, the Su-57 Felon is often portrayed as Russia's answer to the F-22 Raptor, and one side argues this reputation reflects its ambition. Designed as a stealthy, highly maneuverable multi-role fighter, it represents Russia's push into fifth-generation aircraft and has been marketed as a serious challenger to Western designs. The other side counters that much of its fearsome image was shaped by early hype and Hollywood portrayals, while the aircraft was still in development. In direct comparisons, critics point out it lags behind the F-22 in stealth, speed, and maneuverability, and its limited combat use in Syria and Ukraine has seen it operate cautiously, often from within Russian airspace, raising questions about its real-world effectiveness. The F-22 Raptor is widely regarded as the benchmark for modern air superiority, and one side argues this reputation is deserved. It is fast, extremely agile, and exceptionally difficult to detect on radar, giving it a decisive edge over any known opponent. Despite its shorter range and high cost, supporters see it as the ultimate fighter, purpose-built to dominate contested airspace. The other side counters that the F-22 comes with serious drawbacks. Early service was marked by life-threatening pilot issues that led to a prolonged grounding, while ongoing maintenance demands remain intense, largely due to its stealth coating. A small fleet of roughly 180 aircraft limits global availability, and critics argue it is poorly suited to the low-intensity conflicts the US has fought for decades, raising questions about cost, practicality, and overkill. The F-4 Phantom II is often regarded as the definitive Cold War carrier fighter, and one side argues it earned that reputation by successfully pioneering the true multi-role jet. It served with the Navy, Marines, and Air Force, achieved a respectable kill ratio in Vietnam despite facing smaller and more agile opponents, and remained in frontline service for decades. Its adaptability allowed it to evolve from interceptor to fighter bomber, reconnaissance aircraft, and air defense platform across multiple air forces. The other side counters that the Phantom's early design compromises limited its effectiveness. Missile reliability in Vietnam proved poor, rules of engagement forced close-in combat it wasn't optimized for, and the lack of an internal gun initially left crews at a disadvantage. High fuel consumption, heavy maintenance demands, and smoke-producing engines further exposed it in combat. While later upgrades addressed many flaws, critics argue the Phantom was eventually outclassed by more specialized aircraft, remaining relevant longer through necessity than superiority. Mention the British V-bombers, and one side argues the Avro Vulcan stands above the rest. Its distinctive delta wing, powerful Olympus engines, and role in the Black Buck raids during the Falklands cemented its place in aviation history. Those missions showcased extraordinary planning and endurance, turning the Vulcan into a national icon and the most recognizable aircraft of the V-Force. The other side counters that reputation does not equal superiority. While the Vulcan was capable, the Handley Page Victor could carry a significantly larger payload, fly farther, and even exceed the speed of sound in a shallow dive. The Vulcan's dominance owed more to production numbers and political decisions than outright performance, with the Victor sidelined into tanker roles after missile programs were cancelled. Critics argue the Vulcan is remembered more for symbolism and a single famous operation than for being the most capable V-bomber overall. The Mitsubishi A6M Zero stunned Allied forces in late 1941, and one side argues its reputation was earned. Agile, long-ranged, and deadly at low speeds, it dominated early Pacific battles and outperformed Allied fighters, even against experienced pilots. The other side counters that its success was exaggerated. The Zero lacked armor, self-sealing tanks, and high-altitude performance, and relied heavily on exceptional pilot training and Allied tactical errors. Once new tactics exploited its weaknesses, its dominance quickly faded. The P-51 Mustang is one of the most famous aircraft of the Second World War, and one side argues it earned that status by helping the Allies gain air superiority. Its speed, range and reliability made it a symbol of Allied victory, and for many historians, a turning point in the air war. The other side counters that its reputation has been exaggerated. In the Pacific, its kill count lagged behind aircraft like the F-4U Corsair. As a ground attack platform, it was less effective than the P-47, and in reconnaissance it struggled compared to aircraft like the P-38. Its true strength lay in bomber escort, a role often overlooked in favor of more glamorous claims. After the B-29 and perhaps the Lancaster, the B-17 Flying Fortress is often seen as the most iconic bomber of the Second World War. One side argues it earned that reputation by serving in every theater, dropping more bombs than any other bomber, and repeatedly returning to base despite severe damage. The other side counters that its toughness was overstated. Even by World War II standards, it was poorly defended, leading to nearly 4,000 being shot down by fighters and anti-aircraft fire. Designed before the war, the B-17 was already outdated, and its bombing accuracy lagged behind other Allied bombers, often limiting the actual damage it inflicted despite its heavy bomb load. Since its introduction in 1976, the F-15 Eagle has been a cornerstone of several major air forces, and one side argues its unmatched kill-to-loss ratio proves it is the most dominant fighter ever built. Its speed, radar and weapons have made it a symbol of air superiority for decades. The other side counters that this record can be misleading. Most of its victories occurred in conflicts like Iraq and Afghanistan, where F-15s often flew high-altitude strike missions beyond the reach of enemy missiles. In that context, its fear factor came less from air-to-air dominance and more from operating where opponents simply could not respond. The Junkers Ju-87 Stuka was rated by Allied soldiers as one of the most fearsome German aircraft of the Second World War, and one side argues this reputation was well earned. Its precision dive bombing devastated tanks, transports and artillery, a role it had already proven during the Spanish Civil War. Few aircraft inspired as much fear on the battlefield. The other side counters that the Stuka's legend goes too far. Many of its successes came against poorly defended or stationary targets that couldn't fight back. As Allied production surged, destroyed equipment was rapidly replaced, limiting the long-term impact of its attacks and exposing the Stuka's vulnerability once air superiority was lost. For over 2 decades, the MiG-25 Foxbat served as the premier interceptor of the Eastern Bloc, and one side argues its reputation was justified. It was among the fastest aircraft ever built, capable of extreme speeds that once nearly allowed it to intercept an SR-71 Blackbird. Its secrecy alone unsettled Western planners, who feared it could overwhelm NATO defenses through raw performance. The other side counters that much of this fear was exaggerated. Once examined, the MiG-25 proved unable to sustain Mach 3 speeds for more than 5 seconds, suffered from poor handling in high-G maneuvers, and relied on inefficient, unreliable engines. Frequent grounding and limited availability raised doubts about its real effectiveness in a full-scale conflict. Introduced in 1951, the B-47 Stratojet was among the first jet bombers in the USAF, and one side argues it was a revolutionary aircraft. Flying higher than any contemporary fighter or missile system, it gained a reputation for near invulnerability and, had it been used as intended, could have delivered devastating nuclear strikes deep inside the Soviet Union. The other side counters that the program suffered from excess rather than effectiveness. More than 2,000 were built, far more than operational needs required, forcing the USAF to use them in roles where they underperformed. As Soviet air defenses improved, the B-47 was quickly replaced by the B-52, leaving its most lasting impact not in combat, but as a testbed that helped advance technologies like fly-by-wire. The A-10 Thunderbolt II is widely praised for its close air support role, and one side argues it is unmatched at supporting troops on the ground. Its heavy armor, long loiter time, and powerful GAU-8 cannon have made it a symbol of battlefield survivability. The other side counters that the aircraft is increasingly outdated. Its slow speed and lack of stealth leave it vulnerable to modern air defenses. And critics argue its reputation relies too heavily on its gun rather than overall performance in contested airspace. The F-14 Tomcat is often remembered as a Cold War icon, and one side argues its reputation is well deserved. Its long-range radar and Phoenix missiles gave carrier groups a powerful defensive shield, and its variable sweep wings offered impressive performance across flight regimes. The other side counters that pop culture inflated its legacy. High maintenance demands, limited availability, and costly upkeep led some to argue it was less practical than newer alternatives, with its legend resting as much on image as on sustained operational effectiveness. The MiG-29 Fulcrum is often praised as one of the most agile fighters of the Cold War, and one side argues its maneuverability, helmet-mounted sights, and short-range missiles made it lethal in close combat. It was designed to dominate dogfights and counter Western fighters head-on. The other side counters that its strengths were narrowly focused. Limited range, poor avionics, and heavy maintenance demands reduced its effectiveness. And in post-Cold War service, it struggled against more modern networked aircraft, leaving its reputation stronger on paper than in practice. The J-20 Mighty Dragon is often presented as China's entry into fifth-generation air combat. And one side argues it represents a major leap in stealth, sensors, and long-range interception capability. Its size suggests a focus on engaging high-value targets at distance rather than close combat. The other side counters that its true capabilities remain unclear. Questions persist over engine performance, stealth quality, and combat readiness, with limited public data and no confirmed combat experience leaving debate over whether the J-20 is a peer competitor or still a developing platform. The MiG-21 Fishbed is one of the most widely produced fighter aircraft in history, and one side argues its success lies in simplicity. Fast, cheap, and easy to mass produce, it allowed many air forces to field supersonic fighters and proved effective in skilled hands. The other side counters that this simplicity came at a cost. Short range, limited visibility, and demanding flight characteristics contributed to high accident rates, earning it a dangerous reputation and raising questions about whether its longevity reflects effectiveness or mere availability. The Dassault Rafale is often cited as one of the most versatile modern fighters, and one side argues its combat record proves its effectiveness. Designed as a true multi-role aircraft, it has seen sustained operational use in strike, air policing, and carrier operations. The other side counters that versatility doesn't equal superiority. Critics debate whether it truly outperforms aircraft like the Typhoon or F-15, arguing its strengths lie in balance and integration rather than clear dominance in any single area. The F-35 Lightning II is often described as the most advanced fighter in service, and one side argues its stealth and sensor fusion redefine modern air combat. Designed to operate as a networked platform, it excels at detecting and sharing targets rather than pure dogfighting. The other side counters that its high cost, long development, and performance compromises make it overrated. Critics question whether its advantages justify the expense, arguing its impact depends more on integration and doctrine than raw capability. The Su-35 Flanker is often praised as the pinnacle of 4.5 generation fighters, and one side argues its extreme maneuverability, powerful radar, and long-range weapons make it a formidable air combat platform. Advanced engines and thrust vectoring allow it to excel in close-range engagements. The other side counters that its lack of stealth limits its survivability against modern air defenses and fifth-generation fighters,